This is a program that we started because of the necessity to function virtually rather than face to face on account of the COVID-19 situation. Anyway, I'm hopeful that we will be able to get back to the face to face, but not quite sure when we are going to do that. Of course, our centenary celebration is coming up on the 23rd of April, where we are going to have a face to face meeting with about 60 participants, for which Professor Manori Senanayake has already got approval from the Medical Office of Health. So that will be a face-to-face meeting. And if any of you are interested, I think all of you who are visible here today, I'm sure will be participating in that. So today, once again, we are having our Zoom Dhamma chat, and we are very fortunate that Nazisha Vijayasinghe is going to speak to us today. And she is going to talk today on Buddhism and the science of happiness. So over to you, Nadisha. You have to unmute your button, please. Right. Okay.
Thank you so much, Anuja. Is this volume level sufficient? Everybody can hear clearly? Okay, perfect. So I'll jump right into it so that we can also have some time for questions and so on. So thanks once again to Anuja and the servants of the Buddha for giving me this opportunity. I want to also thank my teachers, my father, Homagama Kondanyatero, and Professor Rajadialvis and Homagama Kondanyatero, and many other monks that I have learned from. I'm particularly fond of Venerable Ajahn Chah, who is Homagama Kondanyatero's teacher as well. And today I have a couple of things that I have taken from his talks, as well as my life experiences, which I want to share. So to start, once a man told the Buddha, right, he came and said, I want happiness. What should I do? So then so Buddha said, let's focus on what you want. I want happiness. So he said, actually, it's quite simple. If you let go of the I, and if you let go of the want, in that sentence, I want happiness, you are left with happiness. Right? So this is the simplicity and the profoundness of the Buddha's teaching. That there is a lot of contradictions in quite an ironical way that you find in Buddhism, that when you are looking for happiness as laymen, we find that the problem is in that looking and how we are trying to achieve it. The very thing we are looking and trying to get is the cause of not getting it. So these are some really brilliant contradictions, and that is why Buddhism can be very simple, but it can be also very profound. So before looking at the science of happiness, I thought it would be useful to look at the pursuit of happiness, because that is a full-time job for all of us, the pursuit of happiness. So if you think of the 7 billion population in the world today, there is pretty much a standard approach that almost everyone tries to adopt. So when a baby is born, for example, we wait till the baby becomes a child, send the child to school, then as a young adult, try to go to university, get a job, and then find a nice guy, nice girl, get married, build a house, buy a car, and then get children, and the cycle starts all over again. You send the child to school, right? So more or less, this is the standard accepted approach in the world. And in this journey, there are many things we, in our minds, define and identify as a source of happiness, and we pursue them. So good results in education, right? Getting into a good university, a good school, getting a job and growing your career, finding that right girl or boy, and then building that dream house, getting that car or jeep of your dream, and of course, having children. So these are some, again, standard approaches in the pursuit of happiness. Now the question is, does this work? Of course it works. If it doesn't work, humans will not stick with this. They will find other things to do. This definitely works. So then we need to understand what is this happiness that we get from this approach, and why are some beings saying that there is another way, which is the renunciation, and that gives greater joy. So the understanding of between this, of course there is happiness, but what is it? So the Buddha was very clear. He said this standard approach, this approach was there 2,500 years ago. Maybe people didn't go to university, but more or less, this approach was still there. And he said this approach that laymen adopt is a coarse form, a very coarse, low level happiness that you derive. And he explained why it is. When I first read this, I felt quite bad because I was happy in this pursuit of happiness. I was proud of my results in studies. I was proud of my career. And I was like, how come he's calling this the lowest form? He called it such a low form. It is good for uneducated village folk. That was insulting. And he said, anyone with wisdom will not resort to this low level of happiness. I think he was probably telling this to monks. I don't think he said that to laymen, because he's a very kind person. He will not hurt people's feelings. My feelings got hurt reading that. So then it is interesting to know why such a compassionate, kind person like the Buddha said, everything we are doing as laymen is a very low form of happiness, and not suitable for a person who is looking for some Arya happiness, the refined form of happiness. And it's a choice you make whether which form of happiness you want. So there are a few problems with this, the happiness that we are pursuing. So one is, of course, it is fleeting. I'll briefly mention it because I mentioned it at length last time. So if you take the objective of going on a vacation, you know the planning and the anticipation stage of that super holiday, and if you can measure happiness, which you can actually, research has found that the highest form or highest quantity level of happiness comes in the planning and anticipation of the super holiday. And while you're actually in the super holiday, there is happiness, but at a lesser level than the planning anticipation stage. And then once the holiday is over and you come back home, the scientists have actually found, quite surprisingly, but intuitively we all understand this, that happiness level actually drops. It goes to a negative. You feel like a balloon that was punched and the air just went out. You're suddenly feeling very empty, a feeling of emptiness. And therefore, intuitively, you start planning the next event of happiness, because subconsciously or intuitively you understand that there's a lot of joy in the planning and anticipation. So this is one reason why the Buddha called this a low level, because in order to be happy in this way of pursuit of happiness, you have to really, really just dwell into the whole thirst, tanha. He referred to tanha as a thirst, a thirst that cannot be, you will never be satisfied of. And when you think about the science behind this kind of pursuit of happiness, that is why when people get to middle age, they are a bit exhausted, right? this was fun. I'm telling you, it was really fun when I remember when I was 24 up to about 30, this was fun. There was nothing wrong with it. But when you get to the 40s, closing 50s, you're like, oh my God, there is no end of this. Continuous seeking, pursuing, and nothing is stable, nothing stays. You get it only to lose it, right? So then the second one is the fact that it's not stable. And for me, the biggest realization was with the birth of my first child, that you can really want something really badly, something really precious. And the moment you get it, whatever the joy you feel completely gets overwhelmed by fear and sorrow, fear of losing it, and the sorrow that comes when you actually lose it, right? And this is the same because I teach in a Dhamma school. I tell kids, think of the time you got something new, right? When it is new, it's nice. And therefore, we all, within that joy of getting something new, we also suffer with the fear of this is going to get broken, scratched. There's a standing joke in our family where my husband, he loves brand new cars, and I just think a car is a car. And I always tell him, the first line, who scratches the car first in a brand new car? It is always until that first scratch comes, you're so careful, right? And usually I'm the culprit. And I tell him that when there's one scratch on the car, it's like a big scratch in your heart. It impacts your heart so much. Yeah. So, so that is the whole problem with getting what you want. Yeah. We, I think, have lived long enough to know that getting what you want does not give you happiness. It gives you another entirely set of problems to solve and worry about. Thirdly, if you think about this pursuit of happiness, sometimes you get something good, but you are still unhappy. How does this work? This is because of your expectation versus the result. Think of, my father used to tell this example quite a lot. Think of O level, right? So everybody would like to get 9 A's. Now, we all know, having done many exams in life, results are not directly proportionate to brains, wisdom, effort. There is something else also going on with exams. There is luck, right? You can call it karma, you can call it you get what you deserve. I don't know what to call it, but just because you are intelligent, just because you have worked hard, you cannot be assured of a result. Yeah, you need a bit of luck also. So often we have found that take a result of today's O levels is 9 A's, right? 9 subjects. Take a result of 8 A's and 1 B and see how different people will be reacting to 8 A's and 1 B. If your expectation was 9 A's and you end up getting 8 A's and 1 B, you'll be very unhappy. Yeah. But if you were the kind of kid, you played your cricket, you watched your TV, you took a little bit of effort, you were like, I'll probably get 5 A's, 6 A's, and you end up getting 8 A's. You will throw a party, right? Same result. One person is very happy, another person is very unhappy. And that shows us that it's not the result that gives you happiness or unhappiness. It is your expectation versus the result. Yeah. So there are 2 lessons here. If you're Thomas Alva Edison, you know that just because you get a bad result, that shouldn't stop you. You will try 99 times more until you invent the light bulb, right? Thank God for his perseverance. Otherwise, we'll all be in the dark today. But so this is not about giving up, because a lot of people misunderstand the advice that comes through Dhamma. Yeah. So they feel, okay, so are you saying that, have no expectations in life, just don't try? No, absolutely not. You must try, you must strive. But remember that the result is not yours. That outcome is not yours. As a human, all you can do is strive. And if there's something that you desire so much, so strongly, keep trying, don't give up. Yeah. But if you are going to bet your happiness on that outcome, then it's a very risky situation because nobody can tell what the outcome is. So there's another way, of course. The enlightened people, they live with zero expectations. And therefore, no matter what the outcome is, they are always content. Yeah. So as laymen, we can strive and not get too attached to the outcome, knowing that the outcome is not in my control. But also in a Dhamma journey, we can also choose to have zero expectations. And that is what I did with my daughter when she was getting ready for O-level. She's an intelligent kid. She worked hard. But in my mind, I let go of 9 A's. And therefore, when she did get her result, she got 7 A's and 2 B's. I wasn't upset because I was like, it is what it is. And because I wasn't upset, my daughter wasn't upset. I think kids get upset if they think that they're disappointed or let down the parents mostly. And so thankfully, anyway, another way we may get what we want, but we can still be unhappy is comparison. Comparison is by far the biggest reason for sadness and unhappiness in the world. No matter what you have achieved, the moment you compare yourself with someone who you think is a peer, and if you find that most of them are lesser than you, but one or two of them are more than you, that one or two of them, that being more than you will give you unhappiness. And that is just the way human mind works. And we don't care about some unknown person, but we care about people we knew, who grew up with us, who were in the same class with us, same A-level batch, the same batch of students who were at university, the same group of people who joined with you at your company. That is where that comparison happens. Or the same neighborhood you lived for long, long years. Yeah. So these are things we need to understand. And in the comparison, recently I was listening to a nice Dhamma talk by a monk, and he said, look, you have got what you deserve. I thought that was a brilliant thing. He said, just get over it. You got what you deserve. I think that is the best thing to think when this whole comparison thing makes us somewhat unhappy, to think that you got what you deserve. It is then so easy to let go. So the last thing is the 80-20 rule. Human mind is wired for negativity. Every life, every situation has the good and the bad. And if you really look at it from an unbiased point of view, you will find that there's a disproportionate amount of good in it. Disproportionate amount of good in it. But as humans, we are wired for negativity. Our starting point is to see what is wrong. So we call it the 80-20 rule. And this 80-20 rule is backed by scientific research to say that no matter what happens in life, 80% is still fine, starting with the fact that you are still alive. Right? So when people tell, oh, this COVID happened, oh, this is terrible, if you really think about it, you are still alive, right? Most of you are still employed. You have a way of living. People around you are still alive. You have food on the table. You have a place to sleep. None of those are at risk. What exactly is the problem here? That is the 80%. 20% is mall is closed, cinemas are closed, have to wear a mask when you're going out. Yeah, it's inconvenient. It's 20% of inconvenience in life anyway. It's part of the design, right? So, so these are a few things I want you to think about when the Buddha said that we are enjoying happiness at the lowest level possible. It's a very coarse happiness. He said this for these reasons. Number one, it's fleeting. Number two, it's not stable. Number three, no matter you will get what you want, but you're still not happy because your expectation was something else. Number four, you get what you want, you are not happy because you are comparing with somebody else. And number five is, even when something really good is going for you, you don't see it because of the 80-20 issue. You're looking at life with negativity. Right? And the good news is all of these things can change. All of these things you can rewire, reframe your mind. Just a 1% shift. Now again, if you're going on a journey and you make just a 1% change in direction. Over 10 years, it will land you in another planet. Similarly, just a 1% shift in this layman life, pursuing these same things, even though it is a low level of happiness, even within this, you can find peace and contentment with that 1% shift of really appreciating what you have, being grateful for what you have, starting with the fact that I am still alive, therefore I can do something about it. Starting with the fact that, there are many things really going well in my life right now. And this is about Pubbeta Katapunyata, theraping Atibhava and being happy for that therapy. People are blessed, you all are blessed. Just be happy that you are living your therapy as well while you are creating more good deeds for the future. So what is the more important thing in the science of happiness is what is the happiness that the Buddha spoke about? The refined state of happiness. The happiness that we must pursue if we are to walk this Aryan Magga, the Arashtangika Marga, right? So here again, I just love the simplicity of the Buddha and the teachers like Ajahn Chah, Venerable Homagama Konyaja, and all his students, the simplicity in which they put things across. So it all starts with this Panchopadana Skandha is suffering, right? So very briefly, what does this mean? Let's take the eye. So there are the sense bases, right? Eye, ear, nose, tongue, skin, and mind, 6 sense bases. Let's take the eye, it's the easiest. So when the eye meets with a visual object, or your mind's attention comes to that visual object through the eye, there is eye consciousness. And with eye consciousness, you actually see, right? So here we are. You can see this video. You can see a couple of people here, Anoja, Sunil family there, Samudra is here, right? Now, and you can hear somebody speaking. Now, if your mind wanders, you will not hear, even though there is sound, right? So this is quite common. There can be sound, but you will not hear unless you pay attention. There is visual objects right in front of you, but you will not see if you're doing something else. Your mind is somewhere else, right? So that is why, especially with online education, online meetings, it's quite a challenge for us because we know people have logged in. We also know that they are not there. They have logged in and we have lost them. Yeah, because unless your mind is paying attention to that visual object and that sound, then only eye consciousness, ear consciousness, and all these consciousnesses arise. Yeah, if not, you're present, that's all. So when eye consciousness arises, there is a label, which is the perception or sanya. Yeah. And that label, we have a label for everything in this life. Every experience that comes through our sense bases, we have a label. And if you don't have a label, if you're experiencing something for the first time in your life, you will put a label instantly, right? There will be a subtle like or a subtle dislike. Yeah. So that label will tell you whether what you are seeing, whether you like it or whether you don't. So let's assume you're liking it, right? You're seeing a nice dessert on the table. Anoja knows about my sweet tooth, right? So I sees a dessert on the table, eye consciousness arises, the label tells you, oh wow, pudding, yummy, and lots of pleasant sensations, Vedana comes up, right?
Sukha Vedana.
Sukha Vedana, absolutely. And if it is something you don't like as you step out of the house, you see doggy poop, and you're like, ew, and there comes dukkha vedana, right? And very rarely you'll get adukkama sukha or the neutral sensations, because if you really look at it at a very subtle level, you'll always have an opinion on everything that's happening in your life. So then based on that comes the reaction, which is the sankhara. So for me, when I see the pudding on the table, I'm like, I want some. In fact, I hope there is more because I'd like a second helping. And when you see something you dislike, you're like, oh, God, that neighbor and the dog. Yeah. And that creates our karma. And sometimes The interesting thing is this. Now, all that got triggered because of a visual object. And then that object is removed. Yeah. So let's say I see the pudding. My mom comes and says, no, no, this is not for you. This is for the temple. Tomorrow is Poya. In fact, my mother makes puddings day before the Poya to take to the temple. This is not for you, and she removes it. Now, the fact that the visual object left my eye space, scope, that should end the story there, right? But it doesn't, because there's grasping. Now I have grasped onto the concept of I want pudding, right? And if my mother is not giving me the pudding, I shall order it through Uber Eats. Let me order the pudding. I will get my pudding. So that is grasping. Yeah. So this is the whole process of the Pancha Upadana Skandha. Now, what is the relationship to happiness? This is what is really interesting, and this is the refined part of happiness, and this is the real science of happiness. If we take our mind in its natural form is peaceful, it's still. Now, whenever you like something, gladness gets born. You can actually think of it when the mind is still and the mind is peaceful. When some sense object comes your way and it is something you like, you are born into the sensations of gladness. Gladness arises, and that breaks that peace, shatters the peace in the mind. Similarly, when you're at peace, when you're calm, and there is something through the sense objects that you experience which you dislike, that shatters your peace, suffering arises. So Venerable Ajahn Chah says this beautifully. You are thinking of samsara in a very aggregate form, in a big picture form, of getting born into this life, dying in this life, and getting born in another life. He said, no, see the birth and the process of birth and dying. See it right now. It's happening here. Every moment, can you see it? This is Vidarshana, your ability to see it every moment. Yeah? Can you see yourself being in a calm space? Can you see yourself getting born into gladness and that peace shattering? Can you see yourself getting born into unhappiness and that peace shattering? Can you see that that too is not permanent? It will change and stay and stay and change, and it will pass away, and you come back to that peace. Right? Now, this is where you need meditation. And my instructions or advice to people is even very little of samatha meditation, just observing the breath does wonderful things for you. It slows you down enough for you to start observing these subtle movements of the mind. That is what meditation does for you. All of these things is happening right now, every day, throughout your life. We are not conscious of it. We are not observant of it. We are not paying attention to it because we haven't developed the subtle level of observing it. And when you indulge or when you practice meditation and you're observing the breath, your senses, your ability to start getting sensitive to these subtle changes gradually enhance. So I experienced this really beautifully recently when I was doing a walking meditation. I was doing a walking meditation on a patch of grass. It was a nice lawn. It was in a holiday bungalow, a nice lawn. And I thought it's a good lawn to do walking meditation. So I did it with my bare feet. And what I noticed was, see, the object was to do walking meditation. Object was to focus on the sole of the feet. Just like in Anapanasati, your meditation object is the breath. In walking meditation, the object is the sensations on the sole. What do you feel on your feet as you walk? That is all. You just observe your feet. Your mind is on the feet, right? And you're just focusing on what you feel while you walk on the sole of your foot. Now, for me, I was looking forward to 20-30 minutes of just walking about, observing my feet. What I didn't realize was the level of drama that takes place in this mind as an automatic process. No control at all. So what happened was, as I was walking, I soon realized that the grass was not the same. It was different. There was one clear patch in the path I chose to walk that had fresh, green, lush grass. And as my feet touched that spaces, it was very pleasant. It was very cooling. It was very nice. And then there was a patch that was dry and very, what do you say, coarse, a feeling of coarseness that gave not much of a pleasant feeling to the feet. Now, trust me, none of this is big enough to write home about. It's just grass, right? But when you're walking on it for half an hour, you just realize that even grass is not just grass. Even grass can give you pleasures and pain at a very subtle level. And for my biggest surprise, I realized I couldn't stay neutral. I couldn't stay neutral to what I was experiencing through the touch of the foot, touch of the grass on the skin. I was forming attachment and I was forming aversion. When I'm walking on the lush grass, I'm like, this is joy. When I'm walking on the coarse grass, I'm like, why couldn't the rest of the grass be lush? And I realized what Ajahn Chah was saying, because there was peace. And in that walking, there was peace. And that peace got shattered each time I was born into gladness, lush grass. And each time I was born into unhappiness, coarse grass. And I was thinking that's incredible, that because for me, I really would like most of you, I really would like to get enlightened this birth itself. And the big question was, how would I know whether I'm enlightened or not? And I was thinking like, yeah, see, and now I know. Now I know that I can walk on grass and get seriously grasping grass. And I thought, next time I'm thinking, am I enlightened or not? I just need to remove my slippers, remove my shoes, and walk on grass. And I will know whether I am enlightened or not. How simple can life be? But also the profoundness of that experience shocked me to think, because when I read this Ajahn Chah book a couple of months ago, I didn't understand what he was talking about. That the peace of your mind gets shattered, and do you see yourself getting born into gladness? And do you see yourself getting born into suffering? And it is very subtle, but it's happening. And then what he said was, when you realize that none of this is worth the unhappiness, you start not giving it that value. Because we value that lush grass feeling on the foot, you get born into gladness. Because we value or dislike, that is also a value. Put a dislike value into the coarseness of the grass on your skin, you get born into unhappiness. Somewhere, someday, when you realize that this is really nothing good, nothing bad, it is what it is. It is grass. And nothing is even, nothing is consistent, everything is different. And it was really not a painful experience. It wasn't at all. It was a nice experience, if you ask me. But within that nice experience, there was pain and pleasure. And that is the refined happiness that the Buddha was talking about. The day you can put no value, have no value into anything that you are experiencing. Your label changes, your sanya changes. It is equanimity, it is a state of equanimity. What happens in the Pancha Upadana Skandha is your label changes from this is what I like, this is what I don't like to, this is anitya, this is dukkha, this is anatta, anitya, dukkha, anatta, right? Whatever is changing all the time, whatever we have no control over, cannot give us happiness. And then you intuitively, this you can't do consciously, this has to be intuitive. This has to be part of that automatic process where intuitively you really, genuinely, wholeheartedly believe that none of this has any real value. It is all one big fat lie, one big fat story we have been telling ourselves. And the real joy and the real happiness is in really realizing that it is just an experience, nothing to label, nothing to get attached to, nothing to grasp, nothing to hate, nothing to run away from. And then your mind, which was at the start peaceful and still, in the middle also it is peaceful and still, and at the end also it's peaceful and still, and you have reached that state, which is the refined happiness that the Buddha said every Aryan who wants to go this Aryan path should pursue. And that is the science of happiness that the Buddha was speaking about. So when somebody asked me, I want happiness, he said, you take out the I, you take out the want, and you are left with happiness. So I will pause there and take any questions that you may have. Any comments, questions? Happy to elaborate more on any area.
Thank you very much, Nadisha, for that very clear and simple and personal explanation of what the Buddha spoke of, that in order to arrive at happiness, one has to give up the wanting as well as the I. And of course, you explained that these things operate at such a subtle level that even we, unless our mind is in that still state, even we don't recognize it, because all the time we are going through life and we don't recognize this phenomenon that is taking place all the time. So to realize that particular dimension that is going on all the time, it is very necessary to practice meditation and still the mind. And I think one of the examples that Ajahn Brahmavanso gives is that it is like a traveling car. If you're going in a car that is speeding, you cannot actually see what is there. But if you stop the car and then you look, you will see so many things that you don't see. So in our daily lives, we are like a traveling car, and our minds are moving from one thing to another so rapidly that we cannot see this process of the mind recognizing something and then attaching these labels, even at a very, very subtle level. So that is why, as you rightly said, in order to recognize that, it is important to engage in the practice of meditation. So you put that point across very clearly and also explained this process. So I'd like to now throw the floor open for questions. Please raise your hand if you want to ask a question and then unmute your button.
So like you said, Nadisha, it's extremely um, difficult, well, you can't say difficult, challenging aspect to, you know, go neutral in your meditation. But I think, you know, we at some point, we really have to do it, you know, some slow down our lives. I mean, I'm talking about myself. I have come to the realization that things are getting overwhelming because there are too many on my plate. So the only, you know, consolation is that peaceful time during my meditation, right? And there are also so many thoughts are coming. Did I send the invitations? Did I do this? Did I do that? And then I'm thinking, oh dear, you know, it's very, very complicated. But we have to, when I was speaking to Auntie Anoja yesterday, she said, you know, the people who are busy are the ones, what Ajahn Brahmavansa has said, are the ones who really need to meditate. And I really took it to heart, and I thought I am going to do it. So although I've been doing it intermittently for a couple of years, I thought I'm going to intensify my practice. And so I understand how you say, the mind keeps going to the aversion and attachment. But at some point, I think we really have to strive and do it. So at least the need and the want to do it is better than not doing at all. So I think, thank you so much. It was a wonderful talk. I got disturbed on and off, but I know I really understand you're trying to tell us how important it is, you know, to meditate and to, you know, find what the Buddha has really tried. If we don't do it in this life, we don't know. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
I'd like to just make a comment on that, Nadisha, if you don't mind.
Please.
So I think what meditation does is that it makes you much more self-aware, aware of how your own mind works. So it doesn't mean that, you know, I mean, not everybody can give up everything and go to the forest and be in a still place, because even if you go to the forest, there will be disturbances, there will be wild animals. I mean, this Ajahn Sundara at Amaravati said that she went to Thailand and she was in a hut inside the forest. And she said there were so many reptiles all the time. But of course, she's somebody who has reached a very high state in her meditation. But if you and I go to a forest and then we are surrounded by reptiles, how do you think we are going to feel? You know, we'll think, why did we leave our comfortable home and come here? So the thing is this, that you cannot remove yourself to some place where you're going to be completely undisturbed. That doesn't happen, because even if nothing from outside disturbs you, your own mind will disturb you, which is what you explained very clearly. So that is why, I feel that the meditation practice is something that we can do every single day, even if it is for a short time. I mean, if your schedules are very busy, to allocate a certain time where you get into that habit of doing it. And I think over a period of time, what it does is to make you far more aware and mindful of how your own mind works. And I think that's something, Nadisha, you are trying to get across. Anyway, sorry for interrupting, but I just wanted to mention that. So Nadisha, please go ahead.
Absolutely, Anuja. You are a Dhamma, what do you call, Bandagarik, I think. Very, very lovely. Really lovely hearing from you. So absolutely, Anuja. And Samudra, to there are a couple of things I remembered from Sambana. One is once a person told, a monk told the Buddha, I would like to be alone and I would like to go to a jungle, just like Anuja said. And the Buddha was like, yeah, go. And then 3 months later, the chap was back and, oops, you can't call it monk a chap, sorry. The monk was back and he said, you know what, I would rather stay here. So the Buddha asked what happened. So he said, I went to the jungle and everything that I wanted was there. And then I felt lonely. I wanted human company, so I'm back. So then the Buddha showed enlightened beings, Rahatan Mahansis, in that monastery. So it was a big monastery, maybe it was Jetvanarami, and a bustling monastery with a lot of people, lot of material things inside because they get a lot of gifts. And the Buddha said, you know, these enlightened beings, they can be inside a city, they can be inside a crowded marketplace, they can be surrounded by material things, but inside their mind, they have found peace. And while they will use these material things, if everything goes up in fire tonight, they won't be bothered because these are just vessels they are using. While it is there, they use. If it is not there, they have no need for it. Right? So Ajahn Chah at one point said, if you are, if you cannot be alone by yourself, you are in bad company. And I think, Samudra, to your point, I think, so now there is Satipasala and all, there is mindfulness being taught at schools. I think it's a life skill to be taught, to be able to be by yourself. It is a very valuable skill. And because I think if you look at the essence of being a human, the best of humanity you can get when you derive these skills. Plus, I encourage people, because people think in this high achievement society that even nirvana is all about achievement. So they think they have to go to great extents to reap the benefits of the Dhamma. But if you think of Swakwato recitation, Akaliko, Opanayiko, it's all about things you can benefit, you'll get here and now, this instant, no matter what little steps you take. So even if a person meditates 5-10 minutes a day, and every day, your sense of awareness, like Anoja said, increases so much that a slight shift of your mood when you are in your day-to-day work, you observe, you notice you're in a bad mood. And you notice that when now that I'm in a bad mood, whatever I say is going to be harsher than required. Right? And I probably should shut up now. Yeah. So similarly, I really enjoy that awareness. And of course, there are moments I am completely unaware and I have done something very stupid, which I regret in words I said. But most of the time, you can be assured that that little meditation you do comes to your aid in the form of awareness, heightened awareness. And also another beautiful thing is, you know, that term, rahasing wat pau nokarana sabale. You know when you had done wrong. You know you hurt somebody. And unless you apologize, that weight doesn't get lifted off your head. And I find that such a beautiful thing. Such a beautiful thing. It gives you a sense of peace that you can die today and there'll be no regrets. So thank you. Anything else?
Now, Disha, you touched on a very important point that all of us in today's world, we are all geared towards achievement. And even Nibbana is perceived as some sort of achievement that we have to get. But it is important to understand that it is not something that you get. It is something that you give up. So it's a total giving up that results in this change which takes place. So now having a desire for enlightenment itself can be an impediment. And I think our current thinking is geared towards that. So I think there again, we need a little shift in our attitude. because now even when people go to a meditation retreat, you know, they are always sort of aware of what the other person is doing, and you know, if the other person sort of meditates even after the bell has rung and the person is continuing to meditate and you can't do it, then you have a sense of like defeat, as if you've been defeated. So because we are wired up in that way, whereas what we have to do is to give up all that. And you correctly pointed out this idea of comparison. So even with meditation, all those defilements can come in. And the important thing is to be mindful of those things and then follow the path, which is giving up, giving up, giving up. And I think Ajahn Brahmavanso emphasizes this, because he says that that in meditation, it's always a question of letting go, letting go, letting go. So letting go of wanting, letting go of now if you feel your mind is going here and there and it's not getting peaceful, that is because you are striving to get peaceful. So that itself then becomes an impediment. So these are all subtle things that are working in the mind, and we've got to be mindful of that. And so even in practicing meditation, we ourselves can create sort of blockages and constraints for ourselves. But as you rightly pointed out, with consistent practice, what happens is that you become more and more mindful of your own mind. And then this sort of, I think the standard should be let go, let go, let go. You know, it's letting go of the wanting and not wanting, like, dislike. So the frustration sets in because you want to be progressing in your meditation and you are not. So then that becomes an obstacle. So it is very subtle, and that is why what I feel is that it is something that you have to engage in all the time. And you, as I said, you don't have to go to a forest, because even in the forest you can find impediments. But we can make our daily lives something that we become mindful of. So that way we enhance our awareness. And I think that is what Venerable Dhammajiva is trying to explain in his mindfulness instructions and the Satipasala, that we can become mindful in our daily lives. And actually in the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha says, be mindful of absolutely everything you do from minute to minute, whether it's walking, sitting, standing, going to the toilet, eating, catching a bus, doing whatever it is. So that is again something that we have to practice. It's not easy, especially when we are talking. Our minds are completely taken away, or in our lives we get caught up in things. But to slow down a little bit, so that you can then observe. You become an observer. There is an observer, but no person observing. Of course, that is the sort of point you want to get to. But this constant observing is I think what it borders on yoniso manasikara. Then you can see the arising of tanha, arising of aversion, and all of that in your mind all the time. Any other questions?
I would like to add to what Anoja said. Before that, actually, Nadisha and Anoja, actually they are much ahead of me in many areas. So I am learning from both of them. Now Anoja mentioned that Nibbana people see as an achievement. that reminds me of the story of Venerable Anand. Everybody, I think almost everybody has heard about it. That is, for the Sanghayanava, he was the only one who was not an Arahant. So he wanted, but they wanted him because he was the Dhamma Bhandagarika, and without being an Arahant, they all wanted him. But Venerable Ananda thought, somehow I must become an Arahant before the Sanghana. So he kept striving and striving, and whole night he was trying to reach Nibbana. Then finally he realized that he didn't achieve. So then he kind of let go of his desire for Nibbana. And then he became enlightened. There may be some shortcomings in how I presented it, but I'm sure Anoja can present it better. Isn't it how, Anoja, what you said about the achievement and
Yes, absolutely. You gave a very, very good illustration, Professor Dialvis, because because Ananda, in utter frustration, he thought, right, I'm now going to give up this. I can't achieve this. And then he was like about to lie down. So between the standing position and the lying down position, he's supposed to have attained enlightenment. So, I mean, what you said is an extremely good example. And I think in your instructions, because I remember you conducted so many meditation classes at Maitri Hall, you always used to talk about letting go. And I think you used that example of the monkey holding on to a, the monkey putting the hand through the trap and holding on to the thing which he didn't want to let go. Yeah, I remember that example you used to give those days.
And many meditation masters, what they advise is when a person is engaging in meditation, don't expect anything. You see, because otherwise the average person would like to expect something like, somehow I must become so on, somehow I must be, so like that they have their targets. So what the meditation master says, you just meditate. Then these things will happen, because it's a realization. You see, you can't practice realization. So, okay, any others?
Thanks for that. Just to add to that, Ajahn Brahmanshahandra always says there is never a good meditation or a bad meditation. There is only meditation. I think of that all the time whenever I feel like, my mind was not still. Many people tell me, oh, today was a terrible meditation. It is such a pity that you meditate and you feel terrible about it.
Yeah, that is because, you see, to add to that, everything is subject to this anicca. So your quality of meditation is also subject to anicca. So that sometimes you might feel, a person might feel, today I did a very good meditation. Another day he or she might feel that today it was no good. Another day something else. So what we have to realize is everything is subject to impermanence, even the quality of meditation.
Are there any other questions? Ajit, do you want to ask a question? Hello, Ajit. Samudra, do you have any more?
Conduct a session perhaps once a month or something like we used to, on meditation only, and focus on maybe Nadisha can guide us on that, because I think a lot of people will appreciate if we do meditation, concentrate on that aspect, maybe walking, maybe anapana, it doesn't matter, but if
Hello. Can you hear me, Anuja? Can you hear me? Sorry,
something happened,
my connection dropped. Sorry.
no problem.
I think Samudra, that's a great idea. And anyone for teaching meditation, my father is the maestro. I am good at I'm good at talking. He's good at teaching meditation.
No, we have sat through some sessions of your father. I mean, I have sat through, so I know. So we will do that.
Dad wants to retire.
I'm now retired. I'm retired.
Right. So I don't know if there are any other questions or anything like that. On that subject, I'm happy to say that next week, Venerable Homagama Konnanja, who has been the teacher of Professor Raja Dialvis as well as Nadisha, and also I have received a lot of instructions from Venerable Homagama Konnanja. He's the one who really started us on meditation. He's going to speak on meditation and conduct some guided meditation next Saturday on our Zoom program. Let us wind up our proceedings today with the offering of merit to